You are about to enter the Create Unknown, and make sure to follow us over at patreon.com/thecreateunknown. Pictures of a furry with Smucker's jam rubbed all over their toes. Why are you posting that in the Discord, Kevin?
Did I do that?
No, I did. No.
It's like, I don't remember. Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor. Matt, I need you to tell me something.
You probably didn't know this, but if you need a girlfriend, you can just run a contest. Did you know this?
No, I did not. A contest for a girlfriend, like a sweepstakes?
Yeah. Did you see about the fashion guy in Japan who he brought up this really a contest to find a girlfriend. He's mid-40s, pretty successful. I think Zozo is the name of the company that he runs. It's a fashion company, and he decided to do a documentary series where he just invited like every woman in Japan over 20 to become his girlfriend.
So he basically did The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, not for reality TV, but for reality.
Reality, yeah. Exactly.
How did it go?
Like 30,000 people applied.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he was going to put it on a streaming service. But, people were kind of uncomfortable with this. Like, is this the right way to go about relationships? There are questions too about when I don't know how much money he has, but it's a lot. It's a lot because he said something too recently. He's going to give $9 or $10 million to his Twitter followers.
Oh my gosh.
Because he wants to do an experiment to see if paying them actually makes a difference in the happiness in their lives. So I don't know. It might. I don't know how he's going to track this, but anybody who can give away $9 or $10 million probably has a bit to spare. But yeah, 20, 25, 30,000 people think they've got a shot at this, and then he pulled out. It's over.
What happened?
He's canceled it. He's canceled the experiment. He got cold feet on it. It appears. I don't think he went into detail, but. This is the worst part. I totally forgot the best thing here. It wasn't just to be his girlfriend. If you get to be his girlfriend, you get to go on a voyage around the moon on SpaceX.
What? How did you leave that part out? Oh, also you get to fly around, you get to orbit the moon? I mean, that's
You get
weird.
to become his girlfriend and orbit the moon.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The stakes were raised slightly with the addition of that caveat.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So I'm thinking that's really that sounds like a Jake topic. Like that's a Vsauce 3 episode, isn't
Date around the moon?
Yeah. Like social media contest to find somebody to take around the moon. I can see that being a very highly cinematic, space-oriented thing.
Yeah, but now he's just lonely. He's girlfriendless and moon tripless. I mean, he must be still searching for love and for a moon travel companion.
We have to assume that he's kissless at this point. And now I guess the best anybody can do is follow him on Twitter and see if they get paid.
Yeah, we're going to have to share his Twitter account, I guess, his handle, so that our listeners can attempt to give him his first kiss, accompany him around the moon, and maybe get some of that mystery money.
Yeah, how could I forget the moon part? How could I leave that out?
I don't know. That's amazing. Maybe we should just do a whole episode about the psychology of forgetting the most important part of a story. That'll have to be another episode, though. This one is about hatred, haters.
It is hate, pure hate,
pure. It's the create unknown.
And we have a reason that we're thinking about hate, because we just saw a hate bomb explode in the Create Unknown universe, didn't we?
We did, yeah. So we have had a few guests now that, unbeknownst to us, kind of carry with them a following of sorts that really dislike these people. So,
yes,
full disclosure on the guests that we have on the show, these are people that I know, some of which for a very long time. But I don't happen to know the subcultures around them, just because there are too many creators, there are too many subcultures, and there's too much criticism out there about everything under the sun. So when, I asked to speak with Justin Silverman, who is someone who I've known literally for 9 years, probably. And then all of a sudden, within like 2 hours of an episode going live, all of these people come out of the woodwork who really do not like Justin. It's definitely a surprise to me, and
he knew it was coming too, because he left a comment on the thing saying, hey, to all of the people who are coming in to hate watch this or hate listen or something. And there's a subreddit dedicated to criticism of Screenwave Cinemassacre, a lot about Justin himself, to give you a sense of how this plays out numerically, because if we can quantify hate, we should quantify hate. Most of the time we post an episode, it's like 90 to 95% likes. The ratio of likes to dislikes is like 19-1. Okay. Because the people who listen to the Create Unknown tend to like it. Nobody's coming in to go bonkers on us talking about YouTube stuff. With Justin's episode, it is the number of dislikes outweigh the number of likes, like 3-1. I mean, it's something like 30 likes to 100 dislikes. 100 dislikes on a thing that doesn't have a whole lot of views is insane. This never happens. It's hard to do that with a YouTube video. You have to be really offensive. And hopefully, if you're listening now, you listen to our conversation with him. There's nothing offensive in it. There's nothing weird in it. I mean, we just talk like media work and YouTube stuff and the landscape of it all. But over that 9, 10, 12 years, however long he's been in the game, this stuff happens, doesn't it? It just happens where you do something and bother a lot of people. Maybe you do something stupid and make legitimate enemies. There are a bunch of ways that this can combine. But wow, did we see an outpouring of hate and criticism that we are not used to.
No, and it wasn't directed towards us, obviously. It was directed towards Justin. These people just don't like him. They don't like a few of the people, apparently. So as I learned afterwards, there is this subreddit dedicated to complaining about Cinemassacre and the angry video game nerd and like what that channel has turned into, the more that Screenwave has been involved in it. And yeah, it's not just Justin that gets criticism. It's pretty much everybody that's surrounding James Rolfe, it looks like, and maybe even some towards James himself. I'm not exactly sure, but
I saw some against him for just like letting this happen, letting these people come in and ruin everything. So even when he himself isn't doing anything worthy of criticism, to them, inaction is worth the criticism, or, like he's like an accomplice to his own destruction. I mean, it's the weirdest thing to see some of the mental gymnastics justifying justifying the hate. But yeah, all flavors, all permutations of who, how, and why you can criticize the Cinemassacre sector. We saw it. It exists.
Yeah, and we definitely just kind of scraped the surface. I think perhaps there is a lot more beneath the surface of specific reasons for this hate. But from what I can tell, it seemed as though, to me, from the comments, that the general vibe is that people miss the way that the Angry Video Game Nerd or the Cinemassacre channel was in the past. They thought it was better in some way in the past, and today it sucks. And essentially that once, Screenwave got fully involved in working with James and making these videos and helping him make these videos, that's when, the channel jumped the shark or just turned into crap. And that's what they're upset about, is that this thing that they used to love is now terrible, and they're taking out their anger on who they find to be the culprits of that.
So what is the difference between Cinemassacre in the past and now? Because probably not everybody who's listening to this has a good handle on it. I mean, a lot of people know Angry Video Game Nerd in those videos. But that's, a different thing than following along with all the Cinemassacre stuff. So if you could sum up old versus new, what would it be like?
I mean, honestly, I'm not that deep into the channel to know what the differences are. So, I think that I felt a little ignorant overall as to the complaints, because while I do watch the occasional video, it's not something that I've dedicated my time to being the world's biggest fan of. So I think that from what, Justin seemed to talk about in our episode is that they have like 3 videos a week. So that implies to me that they are like regularly producing these shows and this content, and maybe to some degree it's a little cookie cutter. I don't know. Perhaps in the past, James took longer to make videos, but as a result, they were better and they were more labors of love. And now they're just kind of cranking out content to keep the channel alive or to support the channel. I'm not sure. That's the general gist that I got, though, is that essentially I think that the channel used to be more of a labor of love of James and his art and his creativity. And the videos were great, and they came out when they came out, and they were things that he wanted to talk about. And perhaps now that there's more of like a schedule and crew involved and like a regular series of videos where he like reviews movies on Fridays or whatever, perhaps it's watered down the channel for hardcore fans.
One thing, we're talking about how we don't know every bit of the ins and outs on the programming here and why people are upset over how it used to be versus what it is now. But there is something that I am an expert in. I'm actually the world's greatest expert in this one field. And that field is Kevin Lieber hate. I know Vsauce 2 hate better than anybody, better than you, because of all the comments I read. and there's some parallels here where, there's no hate movement on your stuff. But we were talking a couple days ago about how things like nostalgia and expectations play a role on this. On this sort of thing. And your channel has been around for so long that you've changed formats, you've changed topics, and there's just a portion of people who this ruins their life. I think we've mentioned it in past episodes, but at a certain point, you stop doing Mindblow for a lot of legitimate reasons in terms of programming, logistics, and the direction creatively that you wanted to go. And every video since, which now it's been a lot of videos, there's a portion of comments that amount to, "This sucks, bring back Mindblow."
Yeah. I just got a tweet like 3 days ago about that. Like, when are you going to do another Mindblow? Yeah, like I hate these math videos I loved Mind Blow. Why did you stop doing it? Et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, like you said, I mean, and we've gone over this. There's a lot of reasons for that. And ultimately, every piece of entertainment like has its shelf life. Like there isn't anything that just is great forever. I mean, how could it be? Like I think of The Simpsons as the defining example in my lifetime, where of something that just keeps going without end. And
how long has it been now? 30 years?
More.
I mean,
30.
I might have to look this up as we talk, because did it come out in the 80s?
I think 89. I think it's like 31 years.
Yeah, you're right. December 17th, 1989 was the first episode of The Simpsons. So that's a long time. That's a really long time. Let's put it this way. When The Simpsons came out, let's see, the Soviet Union fell in like after The Simpsons came out. Like, that's kind of a crazy statistic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's older than probably most of the people listening to our podcast.
Yeah, that's true. And it was like 1991 when the Soviet Union fell. So a show that came out like during the last throes of the Cold War is still going on now. And it's not the same now, really, in any sense. I mean, the animation style is different. You know, those first seasons of The Simpsons are so crude compared to how polished it is now. Like visually, it's different. In terms of content, it's evolved. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to keep doing the same thing, but not the same thing for 31 years.
Yeah, and retain a level of quality that the people who first fell in love with it will be happy with. You know, it's like, for me, The Simpsons golden years were somewhere around like seasons 3 to 9, maybe something like that. There's like a range there where like people our age like generally like fawn over those years. I mean, Conan O'Brien was a producer during those years, and a lot of like really big name famous writers were involved, and it was a different show. Anyway, I stopped watching it, I don't know, in like 2001 maybe, because I was done with it. I didn't like it anymore. It was the watered down. It had gotten watered down in a way that maybe people feel like the Cinemassacre channel is now. I don't know. It just wasn't something that I thought was great anymore. So I moved on to other things, right? I didn't like follow The Simpsons around like yelling at them and talking about like how much they suck and like they ruined The Simpsons. It's like, all right, I guess that thing is not what it used to be to me anymore. And that's a shame. But luckily for me, there is an endless stream of like things to focus my attention on. Like, to me, there are literally lifetimes worth of like knowledge, hobbies, and entertainment that I would love to get into, that I just won't. Like, I won't. I almost like wish I could get reincarnated or clone myself and say like, okay, Kevin 2, you're going to be the comic books, Kevin. And you're going to like know everything about comic books, and you're going to get eyeball deep in that world, and you're going to be able to talk to me about it. And I'm going to be able to vicariously experience like the rich depth of the stories of like 40 years of X-Men comics that are probably really cool and have great art. But like Kevin 1, like I don't have time for that.
I have to point out here that you had that clone. You had Balloon Kevin and you shot him in the head.
Yeah, Balloon Kevin. That's right. I did.
You had this very rare chance to have the clone that could explore all of the interests you don't have time for, you don't have the energy and resources for, and you put a needle in his temple.
Yes, for the...
Poof, pop, done,
for
over.
The entertainment of the world.
If you haven't seen, what's the title? Surviving the Deadliest Game?
Yeah.
That's a reference to a video that Kevin made about Russian roulette and some of the different odds in it. There's a great little clone of the Kevlieb, and I guess we've thrown a bit of a spoiler in so far, but it is Russian roulette, so you know that at some point things are going to go badly for somebody. So I don't think we're shocking somebody with this, but the clone bit the bullet on that one quite literally.
Yeah, but
what do you do though?
Well,
if you're James,
hold on, but I just want to go back to some more analogies here, because I was just thinking about athletes. So like overall, there's this kind of theme of if it's better, it's the old Neil Young lyric. It's better to burn out than fade away, right? So you have two options, whether you're a musician, a YouTuber, a TV show, or even kind of an athlete. I was thinking about how. And the two options are perhaps over where you're welcome, or, quit while you're ahead, right? So like Seinfeld famously quit while he was ahead. Like that show never got bad. It had 9 years. Everybody was really upset when they canceled Seinfeld, but they didn't cancel it. Jerry and Larry David, as far as I know, I don't know if there was any disagreement there, just decided this is done. We're done with the show. We don't want it to get bad. We don't want like the bad years of Seinfeld. So we're just going to stop it. And I was thinking athletes are like this. Like Barry Sanders famously retired really young. I think he had just turned 30 maybe. And he's one of the greatest running backs of all time. And he was like, I'm done. And everybody was like, why? And I'm sure there were a million personal reasons that he stopped. But then you look at, other athletes like, gosh, I don't know, Shaq being on like 7 different teams the last 7 seasons of his career, just like hanging out on like the Boston Celtics and the Phoenix Suns and the Cleveland Cavaliers, just taking up space and collecting a check. Like this happens across numerous sectors. And I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer, but it's important to kind of recognize what it is.
This is tough because there's so many examples of this having happened already on YouTube, where there really is a point where some people should wrap it up. Like it's cool if they want to make videos and because they enjoy that and they have this, small segment of their community that they want to keep doing stuff for. That's awesome. Like do that until the end of time, because that's a great hobby. But I think you've got to be honest about what it used to be and what it is. I'm not going to throw out specific examples of this because that's just rotten. That's a cruddy thing to do, right? But everybody listening to this probably can think of 4 or 5 people who, just kind of keep doing the same thing after it stopped being awesome. But what do you do when things are going well? And this is what's so fascinating to me about James Rolfe and Angry Video Game Nerd and Cinemassacre as a broader thing and all of this. It didn't get old. It didn't fail. I mean, that's not the problem here. The problem is a problem of success where it's okay, this is a community that people like being in, content they like seeing. Let's do more of it. Let's ramp it up. It's not just him making a goofy video in his den anymore, like when he was playing terrible NES games. That was shot like of him sitting on a couch and maybe doing a couple gags around his apartment. And I assume he edited those videos himself at the time. So it turned into something bigger, and all of a sudden you've got more people, you've got more ideas. How do you sustain this? Because if he'd been grinding, he would be on like year 15 of those, and that's no way to live. Like, you've edited enough videos in your life to know it's tough. It gets old.
That's exactly what I was going to say, dude. It's like, you know what happened? He got older. Like, he grew up. Like, he's not, I don't know, like 24 years old with nothing better to do than work 100 hours on his like Bugs Bunny NES review. Like, the dude has children. He probably is like trying to figure out like what preschool to send his child to, and just has other priorities in life than like making up a bowl of fake diarrhea to dump on his head for a YouTube video. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it literally comes down to that. And it's weird to me, and it's unfair to me that people don't recognize that and understand that it's like a lot of these YouTubers who, you know, you did love and maybe you don't anymore because it's not the same. It's no way to live forever to be working like 100 hours on some YouTube video. Like, even if you do that for 8 years, that's a really long time to do that. Well, guess what? At like year 9, it's like, okay, maybe I could work only 60 hours a week on this stuff, and it can still, you know, provide for my family and entertain the people who still like it. Maybe I could hire a few people and give them jobs, and now I'm helping support other people's lives too, which is a pretty remarkable thing. But at the end of the day,
that changes everything.
Yeah, like, life is different, and it's important to recognize that.
I really can't overstate the importance of the sustainability part changing the process. Because when you go, I wish I remembered more about James at the beginning. By the way, his channel, that was some of the first content I ever saw on YouTube. Like, that got me into YouTube, was his videos. So I remember all of the early stuff extremely well. I've watched the old NES videos multiple times each. It's one of my favorite things, both in terms of content and just sentiment, like the nostalgia of YouTube and the sentiment behind it. That's how much I like it. However, I can't remember what James was doing at that time. I feel like he had a job doing like programming somewhere or something. I forget. But when it gets to the point where you have recurring liabilities, everything changes. And maybe that's, I'm going to do this full time. And this extends to all creatives, all freelancers, all of it. This changes everything. When the rent is coming from whatever you're doing, when you have all the recurring stuff, whether it's as simple as your monthly Adobe subscription, just all of these like $60, $50 bills that add up. Most creative people have a few of those going on. So let's throw another couple $100 that's going to be there every month that you now need to sustain your venture. You get some people to help. This could be any number of things depending on your specific type of creative. We talk YouTube, so we're talking editors, writers, things like that, producers. You have to have reliable, recurring work for those people, or you will not keep talented people. Okay? If you don't pay them properly and you don't have consistent work for them, then you do not, they will leave for something else. Okay? So you have to operate in such a way that all of your liabilities are getting paid without you wondering on like the 27th of every month whether you're going to be able to make rent, and sustain the thing it is you're building in terms of people and personnel. And depending on the sector, it could be raw materials too. You know, we're a little bit blessed in that consumables aren't a thing for YouTube. Not very often. You know, you need some gear here and there, but generally you don't have monthly liabilities on that. But you have to progress in such a way that you can deal with all of these things. And that goes back to what you were saying about The Simpsons and James and everybody else, Vsauce too. How does all of this square with the actual thing that you're making?
Well, and also, I think another thing that's important to mention is it doesn't even have to be about building a thing. It can just be about maintaining a thing. Like, to me, it can also be like, how do I scale back, like, and have more of a life while also still doing this thing that I love, if that makes sense. Like, if James still like loves making Angry Video Game Nerd, but he also like loves his wife and his children and like paying his mortgage, like those two things are not necessarily congruent. And there are a million examples. This isn't just a YouTube thing of like entrepreneurs and business people ruining their relationships and like never talking to their like kids and wife ever again because they chose the business over the family. You know, that is a tale as old as time, is people, men largely abandoning their, you know, wife and children to pursue, you know, like Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. He wanted to, that dude just wanted to tour around and he wanted to play his music. And like, yeah, did he have a wife? Sure. Did he have like kids with her? Yeah. Did he talk to them a lot? I don't think so.
Not really. No. Not like most people's mom and dads.
You know? No, he was on the road and he wanted to play guitar. And so that's what he did. So, you know, I think that we saw this happen with Linus Tech Tips recently, where Linus made this video all about that work-life balance and coming to terms with the fact that he has kept making excuses over the years of how he's going to kind of hand off responsibility of his channel to this team that he has. He has already built mechanisms in place for like maintaining his channel, but nevertheless, he still grinds on it endlessly because he loves it. I mean, this was the whole plot of Breaking Bad. The entire plot of Breaking Bad, like, spoiler alert if you haven't watched Breaking Bad. Skip ahead like 30 seconds if you haven't watched Breaking Bad.
He breaks bad.
He breaks bad. And I'm not going to give away the ending, but like, look, that's kind of the point of Breaking Bad, is about Walter White breaking bad to help out his family. And then eventually it's kind of he's not really doing things to help out his family anymore. And it takes him a while to realize that. So I don't know.
As relationships... Yeah, as all sorts of relationships progress too. I mean, we talked about James where, you know, he's got, I don't know if it's one kid or more kids, I forget, but he's got a family now. You know, most like 19-year-old Twitch streamers don't have families in the same sense. And there are practical considerations there because you do have to think about the well-being of other people at a certain point. You know, and that's just added pressure and responsibility on that consistency in terms of dealing with those financial liabilities and all of that. But there is the quality of life stuff. And one thing that I think we need to talk about in coming weeks, we should do an episode on the relationship stuff, which is, it's tough to talk about, but it is so ridiculously important. So one reason that you and I, who are each about 91 years old in this game, we can do what we do without really going crazy. I mean, we're stressed sometimes, but there really hasn't been, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but there hasn't been a critical point where burnout is imminent, has there? I mean, where it's like, where you were so close to flipping the switch. Has that happened?
No, it hasn't happened. No. I think,
I'm sure you thought about it because,
you
know, I've thought about that and in a couple different careers where you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. It's time to do something else. But it wasn't, you know, like in a movie where they're disarming the bomb and it's down to 1 second.
No, because ultimately I like making things and I'm going to do that regardless. So it's not really a problem.
A big reason we haven't gotten to that point is because we've avoided certain stresses in kind of life setup, right? I think it's a significant thing that both of us are with other creative people that aren't like 9-to-5 cubicle workers. These are people who understand why we do what we do in weird ways and strange schedules, and they get that sometimes something goes wrong and you work all night and just everything is weird about like YouTube life, right? Both of us have people who understand that. And I cannot imagine what it would be like to match this up with somebody with a very traditional career. I think that would be extremely difficult. I know a lot of people do it. But the effect that has on this, the setup that you've got, the process that you've got to make a sustainable thing, and then whatever the end product is, whatever the creative element at the end turns out to be based on those limitations, I think those personal relationships you have with family, with boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands and wives and all that stuff is more important than it might seem.
Yeah, nobody ever talks about it either. It does go completely
they don't.
unmentioned. I've never heard anybody talk about that before.
No, and I understand that it's very difficult, and you can probably hear in my voice now that I'm like stumbling into words kind of because I don't want to just blast it out. It would be really easy if you just like essentially doxed your life history to talk about this. That's what it takes to say all the specific examples. And I'm sure that's a big reason why people don't talk about it, because to do that capably, you really have to talk about a lot of private things. But the reality is that those private things have a tremendous effect on the public outcomes.
Yeah, you don't want your significant other to be upset at you, if something that you're doing creatively went wrong. And yeah, like you said, you have to spend all night fixing it. Like, you need them to understand that what it's like to need to grind on something, and maybe like the next day you have free because you fixed it that night. But like, that night is critical that you get this thing done. And it can't be a situation where, they're threatening to walk out because of that, because that's just not going to work.
It sounds like we're going off on a tangent here, but I don't think we are. And the reason I wanted to take this fork in the road is because when you do expand to a team and you do expand into what's essentially a little company, and that's what has happened with Cinemassacre, going from James making hobby videos into something with a predictable schedule, multiple shows. They've got a whole bunch of things going on there, and they have a very good operation. That operation mitigates what's happening in your personal, it mitigates your personal circumstances affecting the outcome. It protects. It's almost like insurance in a way. So if, tragedy strikes James's life for some reason, it's not the end of the channel if he needs 2 weeks off. It just means he calls up Justin and says, hey, something crazy just went down. I got to take care of it. Do a couple extra shows, or you handle this, and it survives. When it's just you, if something goes wrong, even when you're just sick, and I know Twitch streamers have a real problem with this because it's so clearly based on one personality. If you have the flu and you're a Twitch streamer, what the hell are you going to do?
Dude, I have a good friend who I've known for like 12 years, Happy Console Gamer, who has...
Oh, yeah.
He got pneumonia. So he is just completely bedridden. Like, the guy is extremely, extremely sick. He's been sick since, I believe, the end of December. We're approaching March, and he's still sick. Like, pneumonia is not a joke. He's going to be sick for months and months and months, and he's not able to work. He can't put any videos out. And this is a guy who didn't miss an upload in like 9 years or whatever. And all of a sudden he got whacked with pneumonia, and he can't do anything, and it sucks. And all you see from him is literally he'll tweet like every 3 weeks, like, hey guys, I am not dead, which is awesome, but I am also like not really able to like breathe very well still because of my pneumonia.
Yep.
So there's no way for me to get behind a camera or get in front of a camera and ramble about video games for 20 minutes. Like, I literally can't do that.
You can see what happened with Jake. I'd say that cancer qualifies as a sort of disruption.
Yes.
I think that probably affected his production schedule for a short while. But what can you do? These things come up. They come up, and when you're the personality-based creator. Like, your channel deals with whatever happens to you. And going way, way back with us, this is precisely why we made an episode talking about King of Random being one of the only people in the history of YouTube to successfully transfer his personality-based thing to a new team and keeping it very, very much the same as Grant himself made that content. But that's how rare it is that I don't know if I can come up with even a second example of that being executed as well as King of Random did it. And with millions of creators on YouTube, like, it's tough to do. So to round this back to our original topic, the audience, we're talking about it from the creator point of view. We're talking about it from the inside point of view. But does a consumer of this content care? To them, the thing that they liked is being altered by these changes in process, by these evolutions, by changing things to meet responsibilities, to pay people you work with, all of that stuff. But they really only care about the end result. Is the thing that I love still a thing that I love?
Well,
and if that expectation has been toyed with, then they either stop watching quietly and very politely, like you did with The Simpsons. Thank you for being so kind to all of them and just dipping out of the party without, making a scene.
You're welcome.
You can do that, or you can absolutely freak out and start a subreddit of hate.
Yeah, those are the options. Those are definitely the options. To me, though, I just take the point of view that it's like the options for the creator or the athlete or whomever it is kind of are, do you stop altogether? Do you get other people to help you, which might dilute some of the personality and the creativity that made it what it was to begin with? Those are kind of the options. And I think you just kind of have to deal with that. I don't know. To me, freaking out about a change in that way, I sympathize with. I totally do sympathize with. I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of things that either stopped or got worse, as they went on. I mean, things can get worse really quick. Look what happened with Game of Thrones, where that was like highly touted as the greatest TV show of all time. And then
and it probably was at that point. It probably was the best thing ever to be on TV during those middle seasons.
Yeah. And they blew the landing that final season so badly that people were furious. And, I get that. To me, actually, that's a lot worse than what we're talking about, because it's like they still had all of the resources and all of the time in the world to make that good. And they still screwed it up so badly. So I just have less kind of like vitriol for a situation like Cinemassacre perhaps not being what it once was, or even The Simpsons not being what it once was, or Star Wars not being what it once was. Like the Star Wars of today, I'm not a fan of. It's not for me. And guess what? That's completely okay. Like, I grew up with those first 3 movies. They were awesome in the 80s to me as a kid, and that's good enough for me. Like, that's okay. Like, what was a big bummer to me? When Kurt Cobain killed himself, because that was my favorite band of all time. And guess what? No more music is coming out from Nirvana. Like, he, decided to put that to an end very abruptly. So, do I get like angry at him for doing that? I mean, of course I'm upset still that he decided to do that. But at the end of the day, it's like, what am I going to do about that?
What are you going to do? You go on Reddit and you make a subreddit that's dedicated to hating Kurt Cobain for having ended Nirvana. That's the option, is to build a community of people 30 years on. What was that, 1992? Does that sound about right? 94?
No, yeah, it was later. In Utero came out in 94, so it was around 95, I think the beginning of 95 maybe. I want to play devil's advocate to myself and ask you a question, Matt, and that is, are we just old? Are we just boomers and we've seen this play out in different ways across different mediums, whether it's Barry Sanders retiring early or Nirvana stopping suddenly or The Simpsons getting lame or Star Wars becoming lame, whatever it is, like we have in our lives experienced so much that I don't want to say we're like dead inside to be reacting to it in any sort of passionate way. But, is it reasonable that if someone was 7 years old when Angry Video Game Nerd came out and now they're, 16 or 14 or 15 and they're mad that it sucks to them now, does it make sense that they're like, hey, this thing that I loved and I've watched since I was in kindergarten sucks now, and it's, these guys' fault, so I'm going to hate them publicly for it. Does that make sense?
It does. And as you were talking about this, I started thinking about an example that is very personal to me, very meaningful to me, that has to do with us being boomers, creative changes, and that is Van Halen. Okay? Think about Van Halen here. When we were kids,
do I have to?
David Lee, yes, you have to, because I love Van Halen, right? When we were kids, David Lee Roth was the singer of Van Halen. Yeah. They got famous based on that lineup. He left, Sammy Hagar came in, and that was a problem, okay, for a lot of people. And in Joe Dirt, he makes a point when he's listing the bands he likes, saying, I like Van Halen, not Van Hagar. I actually like them both a lot, and I might even prefer Sammy in the lineup. But anyway, that was an evolution that really disappointed the fan base. Tremendously disappointed them. Okay? And then Sammy Hagar left, and nobody's going to know Gary Cherone. If you know the Extreme song More Than Words, he was the guy who sang that. But Gary Cherone was the front man for just a couple years, and that was like the lowest the stock price of Van Halen has ever been, okay? Van Halen was kind of a joke and dead at the Gary Cherone period of years. But this is why it's interesting. When that didn't work, Sammy Hagar came back. He was around for a bunch of years, and the fans got what they wanted. They were happy again. It wasn't David Lee Roth for those super nostalgic old Van Halen fans, but it was an improvement. It wasn't Gary Cherone. It was at least back to Sammy. Then when Sammy Hagar left, David Lee Roth did come back. David Lee Roth, I think now is the official frontman of Van Halen at this point in time. And so over like a 40-year period here, it wasn't so bad. And I think it's very tough to see that when you're talking about sports where crazy stuff is happening season to season. All that matters is that one season. You're talking YouTube where it's going upload to upload, podcast where it's going episode to episode. It's extremely tough to get that big picture. And I think because we're 3,000 years old, it's a little easier for us to have patience with it and not freak out because we recognize that things can get better. You're going to get your Sammy back. You're going to get your David Lee Roth back. And if you don't, the thing can just kind of die out quietly. And that's where I think everything is misplaced with the freak out on something like a Cinemassacre. Just give it time to be what you love again. Maybe you don't like a change that happened. Maybe you don't like the programming here. Maybe you don't like, there were people who didn't like when we introduced a Patreon. You remember the comments of people freaking out that we would have the gall to ask for a bit of money to pay the recurring bills of this show and to pay the producer, to pay the editor. People were really bothered by that because it wasn't this goofy, completely free waste of time that they loved. Well, give it some time. You can't freak out. You can't go nuts and just blast hate on these creative projects instantly. I think that's a mistake. I mean, I'm sure there's some, well, look, I mean, you know, if something happens like, let's say the community turns on somebody like Onision, that's different. That's not like a creative direction that people are disappointed with.
No.
That's a specific thing that has really upset people, and that's legitimate. But if it's something like programming, why would you not just give it time to play out? You know, you can put your 2 cents in, and there's a great video from a friend of ours about this with Sonic the Hedgehog. That came out, you know, the trailer came out. People hated it.
For the movie.
They said why they...
For the movie.
Yeah, for the movie. Yeah, they hated it. They said why they hated it. And then the studio responded with changes that turned out to be great. That movie's doing exceptionally well right now. You know, and you can look at an example like that and say, well, don't harbor this pure and total hate forever. Say your piece, get on with things, and give it a chance to get better. Well, if it doesn't, then you pull a Kevin Lieber Simpsons and move on to something else, because there's no shortage of stuff to move on to.
Well, that's kind of my perspective on it. It's like, would James continue to make the Angry Video Game Nerd show of, 2011 in 2020? No, like, how could he? Like, times have changed. He has changed. And things have had to change as a result. So my perspective is, would you rather have it be over completely? Like, these are the options. Would you rather have it over completely? Okay, that's one. Just no more anything. Channel's dead. Do you want to still watch and like maybe be less in love with the content that's coming out now? Right. That's another option. If it's not as good, do you still want to watch the not as good version of the thing you used to love? Or do you just check out completely because it's not what you love anymore and you watch something else? Like that's it. Like, those are the options. I don't think that they're necessarily bad options. It's just life.
I think you're right. And before we go into the Baby Gang questions, I do want to throw a nod to the handful of like 65 to 70-year-old people who listen to this show, because they exist. I've seen the data. We have listeners who are quite a bit older than us. And I just realized we should throw them an example of this kind of thing happening way back in their prime. Not that their prime isn't right now.
Dylan Goes Electric.
I'm sure that's exactly it. That's the example, is Bob Dylan going electric in Florida. Yeah. I can't think of another really good one, maybe it's like Pat Morita being replaced as the diner owner on Happy Days. Maybe that was a real disappointment for some people.
Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi? He was on Happy Days?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he did a couple seasons of I think it was called Al's. It was like the diner. There were a couple different Al's, and for a few seasons, Pat Morita was that guy who ran the diner. But just wanted to throw a nod to our golden circle.
Golden circle? That doesn't sound good.
Yeah. It's like the sort of thing, where you get the early bird discount on the 4 p.m. buffet at some casino in like West Virginia.
Well, that sounds good. To me, golden circle sounded like some sort of disgusting euphemism.
No, I'm just thinking, you get like the Silver Star discount, 10% off your egg buffet.
Oh, okay.
For 65 plus.
It just sounded like, man, I don't want to Google golden circle because I don't know what's going to come up.
Well, now I have to, and I hope it's something horrible. Whenever I search something mystery, I always do it while I'm still logged into my Vsauce email, so that if somebody ever checks, it'll pop, and I'll blame it on one of you guys. Actually, the Kingsman movie was called The Golden Circle, so we're safe here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Simon Sinek has a book called that as well. And there's a tourist route in southern Iceland covering 300 kilometers, looping from Reykjavik to something else I can't see, is called the Golden Circle. So we're completely safe here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have questions from the Baby Gang and INFANTry. that we want to get to a few of these. And I think they're all quick hitters. Do you want me to start? Do you want me to pose one to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one actually is to me, but this is distinctly to you. This is from Boromir, who, by the way, he's new to the Baby Gang, which is amazing. He's been on the Discord for a while. He is in Germany and actually is near a spot that has one of the strangest international borders in the world. There's a YouTube video on it. We should talk about that in another episode for a few minutes because it's really cool. There's this weird thing between Germany and Belgium that has to do with railroads. And so at one point there is a guy, oh no, he's still there, who lives in a house that is like in Belgium, but just his house is in Belgium and it's completely surrounded by Germany. And before the European Union, he literally had to like pass through customs every day when he left his house. But anyway, so I talked to Boromir about that for a while, a couple weeks ago, but he wants to know from you, will he grow a beard if he drinks Gojira chocolate milk?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A great fake wizard beard comes with the territory. So yeah,
how quickly does that grow?
Instantly. It just pops out. I mean, it hurts a lot. It's extremely painful, but it just shoots out of your face and you look like Merlin. If you guys haven't seen the latest Vsauce 2 video with the magic trick that's actually math, I have a great fake wizard beard, a wizard hat, and I had just wrote a bit about drinking chocolate milk, and I had a Gojira pint glass, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to use this just because I know that people who are fans of that band will get a kick out of it. And they did. There are a lot of comments in there about the Gojira cup.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through the pain of growing that beard so rapidly. And I imagine it was tough too, because, I've had a beard sometimes long for most of the last 15 years. And drinking is hard with a beard because especially when it's a thick, viscous kind of thing, like a chocolate milk. Geez, the stuff that gets stuck in your beard is awful. I'll say don't eat baked beans out of a can when you have a beard because it's just going to go badly.
Or just don't eat baked beans out of a can in general. unless you're a hobo and you're on the train tracks, then it's acceptable.
So Jeff wants to know, what's your favorite pizza topping?
My favorite pizza topping, gosh, I think this is going to sound so boring, but I think just pepperoni. I mean, like I'm not against really any pizza topping. I'm not like one of those people that get furious about like ham and pineapple or whatever. Like, I don't care. That's fine. Like I've had it. It's not the worst thing in the world. Olives, sure. Like those are good. Sausage, I'll try it. I don't mind. I'm not kicking like peppers and onions out of bed when it comes to pizza either. But pepperoni, you don't really get other places. Okay, now this is just going to sound kind of weird, but like you don't encounter pepperoni a lot. There's not a lot of pepperoni. No, you really don't. Featured foods in the world, like in any cuisine, as far as I know. So when
Subway has a spicy Italian sub that's pepperoni and salami, and that might be the only other example of pepperoni like not being in an antipasta salad. But you're right. You're absolutely right that you don't encounter it in the wild very often, do you?
No. You just don't stumble across a pepperoni log while you're walking around town, unless you get it on pizza. So to me, like that is the opportunity to eat pepperoni.
That's my favorite as well, though. So pepperoni is, I love getting, if somebody has like a double pepperoni deal, if Pizza Hut's like, ooh, this one has 78% more pepperoni than normal. Like, yeah, I want that 78%. And we used to get pizza. My family always got pizza on Friday nights from a very good staple of the community. Everybody's got this pizza place around town. They tend to be their default. We got this every Friday night. And let me tell you something that really pisses me off, okay? This is like in the top 10 of things that bothers me. And I freaked out on my family about this in recent years. When we get pizza, even now, okay, it always goes like this. What do you want on your pizza? Usually my mom is asking this. So we have gotten the same exact pizza of having pepperoni and mushrooms on top of it is like literally as long as I can remember. I can verify that we have ordered the same goddamn pizza since at least 1986. Okay.
But she asks every time still.
It goes the whole, like every time is the whole progression. And everybody looks confused too. Like there's really something to talk about here.
It's not a new question. Yeah. With new answers. It's just
the
same thing.
No. But they treat it as if they're really discussing it for the first time, and then eventually the consensus is like, yeah, I guess we'll go pepperoni and mushrooms.
Oh, that's so stupid.
It happened a couple weeks ago around Christmas. Yeah, around Christmas, we got a couple pizzas because there were a bunch of people around. And, what do we want on the pizzas? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
I'm sorry. I find that so funny, though. It's so funny. It's so funny because it's so funny that it annoys you because it is so stupid, and I'm glad, and it makes me happy that this happens, and then it makes you mad. Like I love this story because it is so stupid. I mean, why would you keep asking? You know what the answer is. Just get the pepperoni and the mushroom. Oh my God.
If somebody just showed up unannounced with a pepperoni.
Was there ever like a moment where you're like, this time we're going to get like olives and onions?
I can recall one or two times in the 90s when there were green peppers and onions on the pizza. And I mean literally maybe twice, okay? Now, when there are enough people that you have to get more than one pizza, there will usually be a plain option, because not everybody wants meat. Not everybody's into that. So you get a nice cheese pizza to go with this pepperoni and mushroom. But I can guarantee you that it's pepperoni and mushroom every single time.
I love the fact that it's like, twice in the 90s, we experimented with one other topping combination. But that's it.
That's how much of an aberration that it was to get something other than pepperoni and mushroom, to the point where I literally remember like biting down on pizza with onions on it because it just had never happened.
Oh my God. That's the best story I've heard in a really long time. My head hurts from laughing.
Well, let me throw a few others at you since you're in a weakened state. Like now's the time to put you in the Pokemon Bowl. So James asked, give one or two answers to this in like short detail. If you had to do it over again, if you had to do the create unknown over again, what would we do differently?
Oh, that's a good. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm still like coming.
That's an episode, to be honest.
I'm still coming down from the pepperoni story. Oh, like my head is just like floating. I need oxygen to come back to my brain.
Let me give you a simpler one in the meantime. Then Boromir also wanted to know if hot dogs are sandwiches and are salads with croutons sandwiches. That's one I haven't heard before.
Oh, yeah. I play with this all the time in my head. Like there was a while where I convinced myself that salad was cereal. I was like, what is the difference between salad and cereal? I mean, I guess that like if you consider the dressing to be kind of like a milk, I mean, if you mix it around and stuff, I don't know. To answer that question,
that's not crazy. That seems like a valid line of thought.
Yeah. To answer his question, I don't know, because the way that my brain works makes it hard for me to define things like that. I'm sorry if that's a weird answer, but that just the way that I think is too all over the place when it comes to that kind of thing. Like I go way farther than normal when it comes to comparing things conceptually.
I'm giving a straight up no on hot dogs being sandwiches because I think a sandwich needs to have a disconnected bun. Okay, that's my line in the sand on a sandwich. And a hot dog has a bun that is connected.
A lot
both
of subs
sides
have
of this.
connected. A lot of subs are connected, man.
Yeah, they're subs, not sandwiches.
Submarine sandwich.
Yeah, they don't call Subway Sandwich Way, do they?
No, because that name sucks.
I think we've reached a point of delirium
Yeah.
that we haven't hit in previous episodes. Did you have a couple things to change that we like retrospectively should have done, which in the future we absolutely should do a full kind of discussion on that, because we obviously talk about those things constantly as we continue to do this and evolve.
Yeah, well, in terms of the podcast, I think just simpler. I think just sticking to simple longer, I guess. You know, the way that I like, part of my like madness with being creative is to just see if I can do things. And that got out of control, honestly, with the TV wall. Like, I wanted to see if I could build this TV wall and like have a guest beam into it. And it was really overly complicated. I did accomplish that goal. Like, it worked, except
it worked out.
Yeah. But I mean, I got a little too wrapped up in ramping up something just to see if I could do it. And that's not, and sometimes that really works out in creative stuff, is to like push the envelope way further than it should go. And maybe you figure out something that, you know, is fresh and unique and cool and people love. But to me, that was an example, or at least a time in which I pushed something further than it needed to be, honestly.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to go on a frivolous one. Why are you posting furry foot pictures with jelly?
What? What does that mean?
Pictures of a furry with Smucker's jam rubbed all over their toes. Why are you posting that in the Discord, Kevin?
Did I do that?
No, I did. No.
It's like, I don't remember
There's
this.
some meme popped up on my Twitter, and I'm like, oh, Discord should see this picture. There's like jelly all over somebody's toes. That's weird.
God,
and
when you first said that
they
sentence,
don't
I didn't
forget
even
it.
know if you were speaking English. I was like, what are these words? Do these words in a row actually mean something?
Well, we have a couple things on the way. We mentioned shirts. That stuff is moving along. We have shipments that are ready to go out. So get in the baby gang, the infantry. Hang out with us. Get in the dumpster crew. $2 tots as well. We need tots, baby. We need tots.
We need tots. We ordered 2 things this week. We ordered 2 brand new designs, 2 new items that we will be sending out at some point to our patrons. So yeah, go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown to get involved with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got a couple guests on the way. We want to start talking about VidCon a little early in the year because there's some questions about it. So that's probably a thing that we're going to talk about in coming weeks as well. So we have a few pretty hot topics on the way, just like the store. Hot topic.
Yeah. And ultimately, my face hurts from doing this episode thanks to your great questions from the Baby Gang. So thank you, Baby Gang, for inspiring Matt to tell everyone his phenomenal pizza topping story. We couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you, Jeff. You take all the credit for this.
That's right. All right, we're out of here. See you, Space Cowboys.